Hopefully not.
And there's intimacy on the radio, and there's naturalness on the radio that can never be replicated on TV. The marvelous resurgence of radio as a political force in this country.
News-related radio programming is evolving.
There's a huge hole in our dialogue that can be filled by the synthesis of traditional radio and the freedom that comes from a live podcast. You're about to experience Cowboy State Politics live. Here we go.
Good morning, my friends, and welcome to this New Year's Eve installment of Cowboy State Politics Live. From very high above all the puerile and insipid forms of Wyoming mainstream media, this is Cowboy State Politics. I, of course, am your illustrious host, David Iverson, firmly ensconced behind the silver Cowboy State Politics microphone and broadcasting to you from the base of the Bighorns at the Cowboy State Politics Studio in Sheridan, Wyoming. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to the program. Happy Wednesday, December 31st, New Year's Eve. What do you think, Ken?
I think maybe sometimes you should say at a Cowboy State Politics Studio.
Well, that's true. We do have a couple of them.
Yeah, when you say the, and then it looks different every time. No, but Happy New Year.
Yes, Happy New Year. You got any plans for the New Year's Eve bash?
No plans for the New Year's Eve bash because tomorrow morning we're going to load up and head to Cheyenne. I'm going to stop by Midwest and pick up a passenger and go down. We're going to go down and legislate for a couple of weeks. That's how we spend our holidays.
Yay, fun. Well, I've never really got into the whole New Year's Eve party thing. Well, okay, so when I was younger, any reason to have a party was a good reason. So, I mean, it wasn't that, hey, it's New Year's Eve, let's go out and celebrate.
So you just don't remember.
Well, there are actually, when I was younger, I'll admit, man, I was a raging drunk. And I always figured if I don't remember, I must have had a good time, which kind of, makes you wonder, well, did you have a good time if you can't remember it? But anyway, when I was younger, got into it. But now, I rarely make it till midnight. Fortunately, we live in Wyoming, and so the ball drops at 10 in New York City.
Yeah,
and not
Halloween and New Year's Eve, 8:30. I'm done. I've always wanted to know, if I do this, does that make you dizzy?
It does. Yes, it absolutely does. Don't do that
I
again.
feel empowered.
Yeah, I bet you do. Well, you do have all the buttons over there. Well, anyway, my
I don't
friends.
know what they do.
Well, if you'd show up to work every once in a while. Welcome to the program, my friends. And unfortunately, we need to lead with kind of a somber note. A friend of mine, Mr. Chad Prather, lost his mother last night. And I just wanted to tell him, that our prayers are with you. And, anything you need, reach out if you just need to talk. So anyway, be thinking of Mr. Prather today. Kind of a somber note to start out with, but, there again, you got to do it, I suppose. All right, now to the news. And this whole segment should be entitled, More Reasons Why I Can't Stand the Cow Pie. And you may think that that's just a convenient target for me.
Like you need more?
Like I need more, right. But it is a convenient target because there are so many things that they do that just isn't journalism at all, in any way. One of which is they are entirely biased, which, Okay, so newspapers, historically, newspapers have never been fair. If you go on Google and search out the names of historical newspapers, what you'll find is names like, and I'm just pulling these out of the air, but you'll find stuff like the Cleveland Democrat, the Philadelphia Republican. Newspapers historically were absolutely biased, but the difference is they were honest about it. That they just come out and tell you, yeah, well, we support the Republican Party or we support the Democrat Party, or when you get really, really, really into American history, it would be the Whigs and the Tories, and but it's always been that way. The difference being is that your news outlets are honest about it. Where the cow pie leans is if you are a conservative or if you are actually a Republican, you're target number one. Anytime there's an article about you, with rare exceptions, but most of the time, I should say, not every time, but anyway, most of the time, if they're talking about a conservative or a Republican, they find a way in the article to make you look like a buffoon.
I'll vouch for that.
Yeah. And Ken, you have had a lot of articles written recently. And, while I don't know that they've necessarily gone after you, they have, put some of your quotations pretty prominently, and then let somebody opine on what you said.
There's also just kind of this preconceived position, and that's what so is insidious about a lot of the newspapers. If they just assume that everybody agrees with them, Freedom Caucus bad.
Yes.
That sort of thing. So that's the position they come from. It's much like in education, wokeism is good.
Right.
That same kind of concept.
Exactly. So let me give you a perfect example of this. And this totally should have been a non-story. People break up all the time. There are divorces every single day, and rarely are those breakups cordial. Now, I do know people that have just decided that they didn't get along with their spouse anymore, and they were going to get a divorce, and everything is fine, and they're actually friends. Now, I've only known a couple of those cases. But more often than not, when there's a breakup and a divorce, it gets super, super petty and it gets super ugly. And the one I'm referring to here is State Representative Nina Weber. So she broke up with her longtime boyfriend. His name is Scott Weber. In full disclosure, he used to sponsor the program. I think a couple of years ago, he stopped when he still owned Gun Runner Auctions.
Yeah.
And when he sold it, he stopped advertising on the program.
As long as we're into full disclosure.
Yeah.
Nina and I have been close friends for almost 25 years.
Yeah, and I'm friends with Nina too.
Yeah.
But I don't know that really plays into it, because let me just read to you a couple of lines out of, and I think it was like number 1 or number 2 on the cow pie. Let me just verify that so I don't talk out of my hind end here. All right, so it's not on their top 5 list right now, but it was last night. So here's the title of the article. Judge dismisses claim against lawmaker that she cheated ex out of African safari. All right, so Scott Weber sued Nina Weber over a plane ticket to Zimbabwe, and it was some African safari. And I know that she didn't want to go because she told me herself that she didn't want to go because it was right in the middle of interim committees and she had no idea. And this all, like she and I were talking about this last session. Okay.
Yeah. And she'd also had gone on a previous trip and had not enjoyed herself on that trip.
Yeah.
And did not feel safe and just didn't.
Yeah. And Ken and I aren't telling you anything that we read in the piles of bullcrap in the cow pie. It's just conversations that we personally had with Nina. So we knew that she didn't want to go on this thing. Well, anyway, Scott bought the ticket and it was $6,000. They broke up and now he's suing her over it, or he was anyway. So this is how the cow pie article starts. Now, you just tell me if this is fair writing. Quote, the judge overseeing a small claims case in which a state legislator's ex-boyfriend accused her of cheating him out of $6,000 for a plane ticket to, and talk about a run-on sentence, to an African hunting safari has dismissed the case altogether. The ex-boyfriend, Scott Weber, says Representative Nina Weber, and the last names are spelled differently. It always kind of confused me, too. But anyway, that Nina Weber, and listen to this, concocted outlandish stories to secure the dismissal, which has handed down last week. He says he will appeal to the highest court. Quote, The trial showed that your elected official lied under oath, wrote Scott Weber in a December 24th email to the cow pie. Unconscionable. What does that say about her credibility? We will appeal. Surely an appellate judge looking at our documents will see through her lies and bombastic fabrications. And so you get an email like that. That is, you definitely don't lead with it, right? You set the context of what happened, and you say, now, this is what Mr. Weber said, wrote in his email, and you're entirely fair about it. But instead, Claire McFarland leads with the outlandish email that Scott Weber wrote. And so what it immediately does is biases you from the very beginning. That from the very beginning, you characterize Nina as, some liar and
you've already heard
perjurer.
His full story before she's had a chance to say a word.
Yes.
And we haven't even laid out the facts.
No. And okay, so in Claire McFarland's defense, she has written several pieces about this. And here's another thing, right? This is a non-story. The cow pie made it a story. They're the ones that continued to write about it, when in reality, this is something that happens every day. And let's just be honest with it, a dispute over $6,000, while I think that's a lot of money, in terms of a divorce, it's not that big a deal. Okay, when you're splitting assets, and there's automobiles and guns and all sorts of stuff involved, it's really not that big of a deal. But here, the cow pie leads with trying to convince you from the very beginning that Nina Weber is some sort of terrible person. She's not. She's a really great person. I really like her. This is just one of those things. You wake up and you read this and you're like, yeah. I mean, do I need another reason to be angry at the cow pie? Well, I didn't know. They just keep piling them on.
Or angry at conservatives. You can bet that if this had been somebody from the other side, that the used to be called Wyoming caucus.
Oh yeah,
the tone would have been totally different.
Absolutely.
And
it would have been this crazy ex-boyfriend wrote this insane email to us. Here's what he said. Can you believe this crap? But it is an attempt to intentionally bias you from the very beginning. And it's all because Nina Weber is a conservative. And I don't even know. Is she a member of the Freedom Caucus, or is she just hanging out with you?
You'd have to ask her that.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I would have to ask her. A lot of you guys don't answer that question. Well,
one of the reasons we don't is it's so fun to watch people go frantic and trying to figure out who is and who isn't, and come up with all these voter comparisons. And therefore, we know because they agreed 88.6 times. Okay, you're a Democrat.
We get it. You don't have to explain it to us anymore. Personally, I don't care who's in the Freedom Caucus. I think it's a non-issue, honestly, because most of the conservatives in the House, whether or not they're card-carrying members or not, end up voting together. Just continuing for a little bit in this piece of crap op-ed.
We vote together because we have the same concept, the same principles, the same Republican platform that we respect and agree to uphold. We uphold the Constitution. That's why we vote together, not because some jackass in Washington, D.C. tries to tell us what to do.
Your D.C. overlords.
Yeah.
And that you bring up an interesting point, Ken, because there are people, conservatives in the legislature, that I really don't like. That just our personalities are never going to mesh. We're not going to sit down and have dinner. But they have the same conservative principles, and generally speaking, they end up voting the same way. When it comes to passing legislation and being conservative, that's the only measure. It's the only yardstick that I use. Whether or not I personally like them is kind of immaterial. Well, it's not on this program because it's my show. But anyway, continuing with Claire McFarland's pile of dung. Quote, the crux of this case was whether Nina Weber and Scott Weber had a verbal or other contract. Okay, so now we're actually laying out the facts, and we're 4 or 5 paragraphs into it, in which he was to buy her more. And again, the grammar here just absolutely infuriates me. Thank God I have a better editor than whomever does this at the Cow Pie. In which he has to buy her more than $6,000 plane ticket to a Zimbabwe hunting safari, and she was to reimburse him later. The safari was slated for May of 2025. Weber was elected to her legislative seat in November of 2024. Over the course of the 2 days of the bench trial in Cody Circuit Court, one November 12th and one December 23rd, Weber testified that she refused to go back to Zimbabwe after a disastrous trip she and Scott Weber took there in 2023. Well, the one in 2023 happened, and, and here's the other thing the cow pie does. There are pictures in that article of Nina smiling, leading you to believe that she had a great time. If you've ever been around Nina Weber, she likes to take pictures, and she's always smiling regardless of what's going on. Scott Weber testified that Nina had a great time in 2023 and that she concocted stories about menacing natives and exaggerated the other events of the trip to deflect from her involvement in planning the 2025 trip and to dodge paying for the ticket. So there again, it is taking one side of the story and, leading you to believe that something else is the truth. Now, I've got another.
How many quotes did they take from Nina in that article? They took several from Scott.
Oh, man, this whole thing is chocked full of what Scott Weber said. No, it's not on that page.
And if you just look at something objectively and you say, am I getting both sides?
Well, here's one.
Oh, okay.
But it's from a transcript of the trial when their idiot lawyer, when Scott's idiot lawyer Hill is questioning her. So it's not really a quotation for the article. It's during testimony
I think
trial.
we should point out who Hill was.
Yeah, so David Hill was the opponent of Nina Weber in the last election.
What could go wrong there?
I'm sure Scott Weber didn't pick him as an attorney for any other reason. No, it was simply to get at Nina and to try to tarnish her legislative career, or whatever career she's going to have. So anyway, it's a really crappy article, and I've had a couple of people ask me or say, well, we talked to Claire, and she says, well, David doesn't like me. It's not that I don't like you, Claire. It's that you write crappy articles that are entirely biased. That's what I have a problem with. All right, enough of this drivel. All right, moving on. So it is so hard to escape the story about the Somali fraud in Minnesota. It's everywhere. And I think that's a good thing, because now we're talking about in upwards of $7-8 billion that was fraudulently stolen from taxpayers. And it's not just taxpayers in Minnesota. It's taxpayers everywhere, because it was federal money that went to Minnesota and I'm pretty sure it was through the CARES Act and the Recovery Act. But you ended up paying for some of this stuff in Minnesota through your tax dollars.
Emergency funding that.
Yeah.
We got to get it out there, and so there's probably not quite as close of eye on where it goes.
You think? So this one is from Breitbart News this morning. State Senator, Minnesota would not survive nor thrive without the Somali community. And here in just a second, I'm going to play you a video of this state senator saying this. But here's what the piece says. Somali migrants are claiming that Minnesota's economy would crash without them, even as the cost of Somali-run welfare fraud is going on a weekly basis. Minnesota has been racked with a series of massive welfare fraud cases, leaving Democrat governor and failed 2024 vice presidential candidate Tim Walz reeling. Much of the multi-billion dollars in fraud has been perpetuated by Somali migrants who first began pouring into the state in the 1990s. And actually, Ken, from yesterday, there's a video of, let me see if I can find the name of it for you real quick. But there's an independent journalist that's been working on this, and he's done what I think is some great work. But go ahead and play that video. It'll give you an idea of what kind of fraud.
Well, I'm looking at two here.
Okay. Let's see if I've got it. Oh, I cleaned out. Oh.
One says Minnesota fraud. The other one says Minnesota fraud 2.
Oh, well, I have no idea.
Let's just play the first one, and we'll go from there.
All right. Sounds good.
Hello, we'd like to ask where the money's going.
Yeah, this is it. Good call.
What do you guys think about the fraud that's taking place here in Minnesota?
I don't think anybody is enabling fraud to happen.
Hold Governor Walz accountable for this.
What was this money spent on? 1.26 million. What was that money spent on? There aren't any kids.
Answer the question. Are there children? There's no children inside this building.
Potentially the largest fraud scandal in U.S. history is taking place in Minnesota, as literally billions of dollars have been funneled through Somali-ran fraudulent businesses. So much fraud, it could actually almost replace the entire GDP of Somalia. These fraudsters have worked hand in hand with the Minnesota government as they enabled billions of dollars to be given to fraudulent businesses underneath welfare purposes. Some of this money eventually landed in the hands of terrorist groups in Somalia like the Al-Shabaab, and others enriched themselves all at the US taxpayers' expense. And in this video we will break down all of the fraud from start to finish, from going to the fraudulent businesses and confronting the people who are
Okay, so there's the first one, and it kind of gives you an idea of the magnitude of this. Now, go ahead and play the other one from yesterday. It's called just Minnesota Fraud.
Here in Minnesota, massive fraud is taking place within the government and the Somali population. Here, this building alone, Quality Learning Center, is a daycare, yet they spelled learning wrong, and they said leering. This daycare alone in 2025 has received $1.9 million from the government. And the strange things about these childcare centers is there's no one here right now. It's midday on a weekday. And if you were to try to go inside, it's completely closed and the windows are all blacked out. No one's working. Midday, children should be in here. And this place is licensed for 99 children. And this is the outside. There's no windows, no nothing. And like I said, they literally spelled the word wrong on their sign. This is open and blatant fraud taking place here inside of Minnesota. The government is complicit with this, and this is just one of the hundreds of child daycare centers here inside of Minneapolis being ran by the Somali population. It's sad that it's happening here in Minnesota, and it stinks that it's happening and it's being labeled on the Somali population. However, that's just the facts of what's happening here inside of Minnesota. $1.9 million for this daycare center that can't even spell learning right.
Okay, so
I have to wonder if there's something to that can't spell thing. Because there's a particular organization here, and I won't mention the Wyoming Business Council's name because I would hate to embarrass them, but they can't spell separate. We'll get to that another time, I'm sure.
All right. So those two videos give you a pretty good idea of, the magnitude of the fraud and, where it went to. Now, in the vice presidential debate, Tim Walz actually bragged about how easy it was, how easy it is to open up a child daycare center. Now, he was going back and forth with Vice President Vance. And he says, we got to make it easy for these businesses to start. Boy, did he ever. Now, from today's show prep, Ken, there's a video of Tim Walz saying, hey, we gotta make this a little bit easier for people to get money. And it is the Democrat lie that if you provide money, it's going to help people. The truth is, if you don't keep an eye on where that money goes, like Ken just mentioned, the Wyoming Business Council, which there's a monster of a story there we're going to be investigating. A pretty funny one if you ask me. But anyway, there's this Democrat belief that if you just provide money, then everything is going to be okay. But the truth is, unless you have pretty strong guardrails around the cash that you're going to deliver. And by the way, government doesn't need to be involved in private business at all. But in the event that you are going to provide money, you have to make sure that it's going to the correct place. And you got to make sure that people aren't going to steal it. Well, that's not what happens with government. So go ahead and play the Tim Walz and J.D. Vance video. Here he is saying we did such a great job.
Or go to the businesses and ask them. As far as childcare on this, you have to take it at both the supply and the demand side. You can't expect the most important people in our lives to take either our children or our parents to get paid the least amount of money. And we have to make it easier for folks to be able to get into that business and then to make sure that folks are able to pay for that. We were able to do it in Minnesota, and I'm still telling you this. We were listed as the best state. We're still in crisis on this. A federal program of paid family and medical leave and help with this will enhance our workforce, enhance our families, and make it easier to have the children that you want.
Yeah, we got to make it easier and easier to get the money. And you see the results. Now, I personally think that Tim Walz was absolutely complicit in this thing. I mean, there have been lots of articles where whistleblowers have been targeted. People trying to say, hey, look at what's going on here. Look at where our money is going. And, high-ranking officials in the Minnesota government have, attacked the whistleblowers for coming forward and trying to protect the taxpayer dollar. But it is this Democrat lie that all you got to do is provide money, and really it's so rampant that it leads you to believe that maybe, just maybe, that Democrats are more interested in lining the pockets of their political allies than they are in really solving any of the problems. And when you look at this Minnesota thing, that's about the only conclusion that you can come to, because they made it so easy to commit fraud that, it's almost like they didn't even try to get a handle on where any of that money was going.
And don't think that Wyoming is immune to this.
Oh, we're not.
When you sit here with a population of less than 600,000 people and half of them don't vote, and you bring in, I don't know how many people it would take.
Not very many.
But start taking over elections. We all need to be diligent. We need to pay attention. We need to know who we're voting for and what they stand for.
Well, and just look at that, the independent journalist guy that we played the video from. He's just a normal guy that got fed up and said, no, we're going to go investigate this. And if you watch his entire video, which it's widely available on YouTube, but if you watch the whole thing, he found a guy that has been researching this thing for a really long time. And they go out together and go visit all of these, alleged daycare centers. Now, after the break, we're going to hit the other side of this thing, where we've got a state senator saying, well, without the Somali community, Minnesota wouldn't exist. But we'll take a break, and then we'll go ahead and hit that one. So lots to talk about. One of my favorite stories that I meant to get to yesterday is about Iran. This is a big one, too. But we'll do both of those after the break. Are you tired of all the meaningless political drivel floating around right now? Endless commentary that really doesn't have anything backing it up? Do you long for the days of true investigative journalism coming from an authoritative source who really doesn't care how popular and apparently good-looking a politician is? Fortunately for you, that's what I do on Cowboy State Politics. New episodes are published every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday, and you can get them anywhere that you get your podcasts. iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, really any of them will work. But the easiest way is just to go to the website, cowboystatepolitics.com. There, you can find all of the shows, as well as any of the articles I might bring up during the course of the program. Cowboy State Politics Live, the program you're listening to right now, is broadcast every Tuesday through Friday, beginning at 8 a.m. Pay attention to all of that other block-headed nonsense if you want. Just make sure that you don't miss an episode of Cowboy State Politics. And now, back to our program. Welcome back to the program, Cowboy State Politics Live, New Year's Eve on the program. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And by the way, yesterday's show, that thing went bonkers.
Yeah. Just as an aside, it's New Year's Eve everywhere, not just on the program.
Well, and for
we
right
are
now,
live. That's my point.
It's true. We are live. But anyway, thank you for watching the show. Now, where we left off before the break was all of this Minnesota fraud. Well, now it has moved from the reporting that's happening on the ground to legislators and politicians reacting to it. And as you might expect, there's a couple of politicians that are in their state legislature that are saying, well, no, see, really, you have to have the Somali community. Go ahead and play the video. Let's see, which one is it? It shows you how prepared I am this morning. Here we go, there, 12:31. All right, so, yeah, it's Minnesota won't survive without Somalis. Go ahead and play that one. She's a state legislator.
State Senator Zaida Mohammed says these attacks won't stop with Somalis, and their contributions can't easily be erased.
We are in every industry, and Minnesota would not be able to survive nor thrive without the Somali community here.
Oh, yeah, you see, the state of Minnesota didn't survive, nor did it thrive before all this giant Somali community started moving in there. You see, it's impossible now for anything to happen without them because they're in every industry. Well, okay, but that undercuts the argument that it is not the Somali community, and it's not everybody in the Somali community that's responsible for this fraud. But let's just put the facts on the table. All but a couple of the people that have been implicated in this whole scheme, all but a couple of them are Somali. There's only like 4 or 5 of them that aren't a Somali immigrant. And in the video, you saw a couple of the people that are involved in it. So this is a big deal. But there's also another state senator who he ran for the mayor of Minneapolis, Omar Fattah. And now he says it's actually white men to blame for all of this. Go ahead and play the video. It's white men to blame in Minnesota.
Heard them being called terrorists. We heard them being called drug dealers. We heard a lot of insults. We heard that they're a threat to our national security. And that's a flat out lie.
Steal $1 billion.
You want to know who the real threat is, Madam President? I'll give you a hint. They don't look like our chief author. They don't look like the folks up in the gallery. They don't look like the folks out in the rotunda. They look like many of the members that sit in the front. And you don't have to take my word for it. According to DHS, Madam President, the greatest domestic threat facing the United States comes from, quote, racially or ethnically motivated violent extremists, specifically those who advocate for the superiority of the white race.
Oh, so it's white men that are
not our immigrants.
Yeah.
We are safer and we're better off because of them.
Yeah. It's not anybody in the Somali community that's responsible for this. It's racist white men.
This whole thing is pretty insidious. I put my own picture up there. The whole thing is pretty insidious because you notice how he's talking about what do they look like.
Yeah.
It's all about race. It's all about appearance. It's all about how do we subdivide the population. Mm-hmm. America used to be a melting pot. We used to come together and become Americans. Now, you can't have America without Somalians.
Yes, it's exactly right. Well, and it is just an attempt to deflect from the real issue. So it's not a whole group of migrants that are some of them illegal aliens who are scamming the American government out of billions of taxpayer dollars. No. Pay no attention to that. It's all racism. And, I don't know that we are completely at the place where everything gets reduced to race, but it sure as heck seems that way. That the easy refrain on any of this is, well, you're just a racist. And the reason for that is the word racism itself carries with it such negative connotations that usually if you accuse somebody of being a racist, their immediate reaction is, no, I'm not. It shifts the burden of proof from the accuser to the accused, saying, no, I'm not a racist. Well, that's why they use that term with everything, because it shifts the focus from one party to the other. Well, this Somali fraud isn't about racism. It's about theft. It's about fraud. It's about stealing billions of taxpayer dollars and making sure that that money makes it into the hands of al-Shabaab terrorists. I mean, it's I don't know that you could get any more insidious than this. Just it's absolutely mind blowing if you ask me. So one story, a totally different story that I've been wanting to talk about, but we keep getting sidetracked. And yesterday we had Chuck and Josh on the program. By the way, thank you very much for watching that show. That was a heck of a lot of fun to do. I really had a good time. No, I have a good time talking to you every day, but that one was a blast.
I had to laugh just a little bit about Chuck's elevator speech. He must live in a much taller building than I.
He must, man, because that elevator speech went on and on and on.
Yeah, not that he didn't have good things to say, but usually, the concept of the elevator speech, and he might not have heard you actually use that.
Maybe
phrase,
not.
Is we're going to give you a minute or two. If you meet somebody on an elevator, you can tell them why you're running before you get to the third floor.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that one didn't. I mean, he started at the bottom of the Empire State Building and went all the way up to the Needle on that one.
And back down.
Yeah. So there's a very, very, very important thing happening in Iran right now. And a lot of times when stories happen in other parts of the world, we feel disconnected from them because we're just so far away. Secondly, it's pardon the pun, it's a foreign concept because hopefully we don't have to deal with the same things that are happening in that other country. Well, there is yet another giant protest that's happening in the streets of Tehran. Now, this isn't anything new. The Green Revolution sparked when Obama was president, and in my opinion, the Green Revolution failed in Iran because President Obama didn't do anything. Like all he would have had to say was the United States supports you, which maybe he thought maybe he thought that was implicit that of course we support protests, but he didn't do anything. There were signs downtown Tehran that said, "Mr. Obama, please help us." Well, he didn't do anything, and the Iranian government was able to quash that revolution. Well, it's happening again, but for a very, very, very important reason, because their currency collapsed. So that was the impetus for people to get out in the street. And if you look, I mean, you can go all the way back to the Roman Empire. Every single time a currency collapses, it ends with a violent altercation. Okay, so in the Roman Empire, there are many historians that will tell you that they inflated their currency and they couldn't pay their soldiers, and pretty much inflation spiked through the roof. An early form of inflation. I mean, they didn't have the Federal Reserve hitting the print button on the printing press. But
salt mine was open extra days.
Well, that, and literally what they did is they reduced the silver content in their coins. And so, and people aren't stupid. So what ended up happening is Roman citizens would hoard the actual silver coins, and the ones that were being minted by the I guess the Caesar or the dictatorship, whatever you want to call them, those were pretty much worthless. Well, that's what happens when your currency collapses. Your money becomes worth less. And in this case, in the case of Iran, inflation has soared to over 40%. Let me give you a couple of other examples. The Weimar Republic in Germany. So after World War I, Germany was charged with the entire cost of the war, a debt that they finally paid off in, I think, 2015. But think about that, right? They had the entire debt of World War I they had to pay off, and they finally did it in the 2015, 2016, around there somewhere. Well, what happened in the Weimar Republic is they had this huge debt, and they couldn't pay for it, and so they started printing money. And very quickly, the money became worthless. There's this great story of a guy that goes to a grocery store. Oh, and by the way, I should tell you that in the Weimar Republic, you would get paid twice a day. You would get paid in the morning so that you could go buy your food for lunch, because inflation was so high and the prices were changing so rapidly that by lunchtime, if you didn't get paid in the morning, you wouldn't be able to afford your food. And so they'd pay you in the morning, you'd go to the store, buy your food, and then you'd go to work. Well, then at lunchtime, they'd pay you again, and you would buy your food for dinner. Well, there's this great story of a guy that goes to their market, and he's got all of his food stuff stacked on the counter, and he turns around and he gets robbed. Now, they didn't take his wheelbarrow full of money, which it literally was a wheelbarrow. They didn't take that because it wasn't worth anything. They took his food. Eventually, the Weimar Republic devolved into chaos. This is where the brown shirts started to show up. Chaos in the streets, and pretty soon Hitler comes to power. And I'm skipping over a lot, but pretty much it ended with World War II. Zimbabwe in 2008. This one's crazy, man. This is one you can go on to like eBay or Google and type in Zimbabwe $100 trillion bill. You can buy those. They're not worth anything. But inflation went so high because of government spending. And what happened? Riots in the streets. Well, the same thing is happening in Iran. From Breitbart News, massive protests sweep Iran after currency collapse. And I quote, huge protests spread through several Iranian cities on Tuesday after the national currency, the rial, collapsed to a record low against the U.S. dollar, and inflation soared by over 40%. Think about that. Your food goes up in price over 40%, like overnight. Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't be able to buy anything.
It never happened in America.
Well, I mean, that's kind of the point I'm getting to at the end of this, that actually it kind of is happening. Now, our currency isn't collapsing yet, but we are seeing, at least under Biden, we were experiencing some pretty high inflation. All right, continuing with the piece. The Associated Press cited reports from the capital city of Tehran, plus the cities Isfahan, Shiraz, and Mashhad, that described the protests as the largest since the Women, Life, and Freedom movement in 2022. That movement began with the death of a young Kurdish woman named Masha Amini in the custody of Iran's infamous morality police after she was detained for allegedly wearing her mandatory headscarf improperly. Now, you remember that one a couple of years ago. She gets detained because she's not wearing a full hijab. And this has become a big protest in Iran, by the way. Women going out in public. And think about this. So you can be killed for not covering your entire body if you're a woman in Iran. We have no conception of what that's like here. Here, you can wear anything you want, or in some cities, nothing at all. And you're probably not even going to get arrested. But in Iran, you could face the death penalty. Well, she didn't get the death penalty. She was killed by security forces. The new protests, which reportedly broke out from universities and spread to merchant districts across Iran, okay, it's currency related. So, of course, the protests are going to start in, the merchant district, the store around the stores. They were prompted by the value of the rial falling about 1.42 million per U.S. dollar. Think about that. 1.42 million rial for $1 U.S. dollar. In other words, it would take a wheelbarrow full of money to buy anything. The rial was trading at $430,000 to the dollar when the Iranian central bank chief Mohammad Reza Farzin took office in 2022. Iranian state media reports that Farzin resigned on Monday, but the protests didn't subside. Many businessmen closed their shops in protest of the currency collapse and high inflation rates. General inflation rose 1.8% to 42.4% in December, but food inflation was dramatically higher, hitting 72% last month. So what they're telling you is, immediately before the riots broke out, inflation spiked 1.8%. But remember, inflation is cumulative. So when you hear the news say inflation fell to 2.2% or whatever the number is, that's not that inflation right now is 2.2%. That's 2.2% plus what it was last month, plus what it was the month before, and the month before that, and the month before that. It's cumulative. Okay, so we are still dealing with the inflation from the Biden administration. It's just that the speed at which the velocity of money is what it's called. The velocity of money printing has slowed. That's the only thing that's telling you. But what it did in Iran is it hit the food inflation hit 72% inflation last month. Think about that. 72% year over year. So last year, and I don't have a calculator on me, but think about it. You buy a pound of coffee last year and it cost you 72% more. So maybe in our terms, a pound of coffee will cost you about $13, at least coffee that you want to drink. I don't know about coffee at Ken's house, but the coffee we buy, it's around $13 a pound. Well, imagine if in a year's time that same coffee was $26 a pound, and everything else you buy also spiked 72%. You wouldn't be able to afford enough food to eat. Another cause of the unrest was a report that the government is planning a major tax hike for March, which is the beginning of the new year on the Iranian calendar. The Iranian regime reportedly tried suppressing the protests with its usual brute force tactics, sending military police to break up street marches in Tehran with tear gas and batons, but the demonstrators actually drove security forces back with deafening chants of shameless, shameless. Now, I've got a short video of the Iranian protests, but I want you to pay attention to the subtitles in the video because it's going to tell you that what they're protesting about is actually money, that it's the currency. Go ahead and play the video, Ken. Palestine and Gaza both sacrificed for Iran. Okay, so what they're talking about, all right, it's enough of the video. What they're talking about is all of the money that went to terrorist organizations in Palestine. That's what they're protesting about. The high inflation, too. But think about the billions of dollars that were spent on all of these various terrorist organizations in Gaza, in the West Bank, and everywhere else. So the protest is, look, you're taking our money and giving it to terrorists in other countries instead of keeping it here. So it's telling you that all of these protests, really, when you boil it all down, yes, it has to do with the Iranian regime being what it is. But really, what sparked it is all the money. That's almost always what happens in countries. When the currency collapses, so too does the regime. Let's see, what else do I've got in this piece? I mean, this, you should really dig into this because and maybe it's because I'm a historian why this thing piques my interest so much, is that it is the same thing that happens, the world over. I mean, there are several examples. And actually, if you want to think about the U.S., and this is where I wanted to end up with this segment. You remember, what was it, 2008, when our market collapsed, the housing bubble that happened when
Fannie and Freddie.
When Fannie and Freddie hit the dirt. Well, I remember watching the stock market, and for several days, it would be the Dow Jones, and at the time, the Dow Jones Industrial was not at 40,000. I think at most it was at like 16 or 17,000. But for several days, I'd see the stock ticker, Dow Jones drops 600, drops 500, drops 800, drops 600. And it went on for several days. And part of that, and what happened afterwards? So you have an economic collapse, businesses closed. I, too, was laid off during that whole thing. I was living in Virginia and working for a crappy Democrat, so maybe it was a good thing for me that I got laid off. But that happened across the country. Now, it wasn't our currency, so to speak, that collapsed, but it was the same effect. Now, it would take a lot more for our currency to, increase the inflation to increase 70%. But think about it. A couple of years ago, our inflation was 14, 15, 17% in some months. And so it's not like it was, it's unheard of here. And I think another point that we ought to make here, don't ever think that it can't happen here. You hear that phrase a lot. Oh, this is Wyoming. That can't happen here. Oh, this is America. That can't happen here. It absolutely can. And if you want any evidence of that, look at the price of silver. Okay, the price of silver is, last I checked, it was over $70 an ounce. I don't have enough silver to even really worry about it. I've got some coins in the safe, but that's about it.
Yeah, it broke 80, and then it fell back off, and now it's soaring again.
Okay, so why is that? Why does the price of gold and the price of silver go up? Well, it's because there's an inverse relationship between precious metals and the U.S. dollar. What do I mean by inverse relationship? When the value of your money goes down, the value of gold goes up. Now, it's not the price of gold that's increasing. It's the value of the dollar that's decreasing. So an example I always use on the show. Let's say it's 100 years ago and Ken has a gold dollar in his pocket. What could he buy? Well, he could probably buy...
Nice suit of clothes.
Yeah, well, actually, you could probably buy 2 pretty nice suits, I would think.
Yeah, there's an argument similar to where you're going, which says basically an ounce of gold has always been worth a really nice suit of clothes.
Well, yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying, is that 100 years ago, you could buy a couple of pretty nice suits. Now, fast forward to now, Ken has that same gold dollar in his pocket, and it's worth over $4,000. What could he buy? 2 pretty nice suits.
A couple of weeks' worth of groceries.
Yeah, in Ken's house anyway. But the truth is, it's not the value of gold or silver that's changing. It's the value of the dollar. And a lot of this is driven by big-time investors, that when things are good, and we're talking about the Warren Buffetts and the Bill Gates and, Elon Musk, those types of investors. When things are going good, you'll see them have a large amount of their assets in the stock market. Okay, so they're just playing with companies, and things are great and they're making money, so why not? Sometimes the company's stock will drop. Well, that's okay. Go to the next one. Well, when things get a little bit hairy, a lot of investors switch from stocks to treasuries, bonds, right? They're a little bit more stable because they're backed by the U.S. government. Well, if things get a little bit hairier than that, then there's these things called TIPS. Those are Treasury inflation-protected securities. And so, in other words, those are the things that the U.S. government sells when we print money. Okay, it's a vicious cycle that the Federal Reserve issues these TIPS or Treasury notes. And then the Treasury prints the cash. So really, I mean, we're selling debt to ourselves is what we're doing. But investors, when things are really hairy, they're still going to make money. And so they invest in these bonds because they're entirely backed by the U.S. government and they're protected against inflation. So they're always worth what you invested. And then when things get super, super, super bad and nobody really knows what's going on, well, we're not buying any of that paper stuff. We got to buy things that we can hold in our hands, like gold. And what you're seeing with the value of gold and the value of silver is very much a run on those commodities. Now, it could be, let me just give you a maybe sort of, this could be very similar to a run on the bank. That when people get scared, they run to the bank and they withdraw all their money and they stuff it between 2 mattresses. Okay, and then the bank fails. We saw a lot of that in 2008. That's exactly what happened. People went and withdrew all of their deposits because they didn't want to lose their money. Well, we could be experiencing the very same thing, that it could be just fear in the market. But you should discount that because of the high value of gold. Okay, we're over $4,000 an ounce, which I remember a couple of years ago thinking, man, if it hits 2,000, I don't want to see the world. But it's 4,000 now or more. So that's what's happening there. And all of it boils down to currency. Now, there's a couple of great apps if you want to research this for yourself. Just search currency app, and you should be able to find it, and it will show you the velocity of money. By that I mean how much money that we have actually printed, the supply of dollars in the world. Now here's another scary point for you. There are more dollars in the world. Excuse me. The U.S. government owes more money, that is our debt at 36 and whatever trillion dollars. We owe more money than exists on the face of the planet Earth. That's our debt versus how much money actually exists. If you got all the money in the world and you put it into one big pot, it would not equal the $36 trillion.
That's why we got to find aliens living on comets.
Yes, we do. Yeah.
I listened to this, and everybody is seeing It's a Wonderful Life, and you saw what happened with the run on the bank and that.
Yeah.
What happens with a major power grid failure?
Oh, a very, very similar
Because
thing.
everything now is digital.
Mm-hmm.
What happens when theoretically I have $32 billion, Wyoming? What have you really?
Mm.
When the poo hits the fan, and that would never happen. It's never going to happen.
It happened to us.
Yeah.
So, okay, small
Go
example.
ahead.
Ken and I are taking a trip. We're going to Goshen County to a Republican event. We were doing the sound down there. And I told him, I'm like, well, we got to stop by the bank on the way out of town. I need to get some cash. And we pull up at the bank. Ken goes over to the ATM, and I see him walking back, and he's kind of shaking his head. And I'm at the teller, and the teller tells me, well, I'm sorry, all our power is out. I can't give you any cash. Well, wait a minute. You can't open the cash drawer or something? And I couldn't get any money out. Now, just imagine what happens when there's a giant currency collapse and all your cash is stashed in the bank. What's going to happen? Well, it might be another reason why perhaps you should have things that have real value around. Gold, for instance.
Things that go boom.
And yes. Well, the precious metals that I have, allegedly, are not gold and silver. They take the form of brass and copper and lead. I have quite a bit of those. All right, so let's go ahead and take another break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about digital ID. I think this one's kind of another terrifying concept. Maybe you're already using it. We'll talk about it when we come back. Yeah, I know. The weather seems to be toying with us. 60 one day, 42 the next, and pretty soon, my friends, those 6s and 4s are going to turn into 3s and 2s. Though we all want to avoid it, that white stuff is coming, my friends, and you will be shoveling the walk in it. It's cold, it's unpleasant, and nobody likes to do it. But you could make it just a little bit more comfortable and prevent your feet from turning into a giant block of ice. In fact, you could keep them nice and warm and toasty, and your toes will never even know that they're outside. The rest of you may be frozen solid, but at least your feet won't be. To make all this happen, you just need a pair of socks from the Buffalo Wool Company. They are the finest socks that I've ever put on my feet. To get you a pair, go to their website, thebuffalowoolco.com. Trust me, you won't be disappointed. Are you one of those guys that listen to the president just a little bit too closely and now you're tired of winning? Are you getting the feeling that there's been way too many good things happening in our country and you just can't take it anymore? Well, if you are, and you think you should follow Rosie O'Donnell's example and get the heck out of Dodge, you need to call Rebecca Bextel at eXp Realty. She'll make those foreign country living ideas a reality for you. All you have to do is call 307-699-3519, and she'll make sure some freedom-loving, red-blooded American will now live in the home that you no longer want. If you want to sell your house, or if you want to buy one that's way better than the house you have right now, give Rebecca a call. Again, her phone number is 307-699-3519.
I've never felt the freedom like I do. I feel stronger every day, don't you? Well, I can show you how. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. I've never felt the freedom like I do. I feel stronger every day. I'm only gonna get stronger.
Cowboy State Politics, it's only going to get stronger. There's the Cowboy State Politics newsletter, The Outrider, which will be out tomorrow. It's the official newsletter of Cowboy State Politics. Of course, this program. Thank you for watching the podcast, which will be out shortly after I finish today's program. And then very soon we're adding, I don't even want to let the name of it out of the bag yet.
So the Outrider comes out tomorrow or next year? I'm confused.
Well, it does come out next year. It's true. But the next version of the Outrider will be out. Comes out every Thursday, and it just gives you.
Don't you hate those people that say things like "See you next year"?
Yeah, it irritates the crap out of me. But anyway, the newsletter gives you a rundown of everything that happened on the program during that week, and there are just some people that, for whatever reason, I can't imagine what it is, but they don't like to listen to podcasts. I mean, if you are one of those people, I feel bad for you. But anyway, I've come up with a solution. The newsletter. It gives you and I a way to communicate that's just a little bit different. Generally, whatever the big story of the week is, I'll write a couple paragraphs about it and include some of the other things that have happened. So I've gotten a lot of really good response on it, and it's growing. It's actually, I really enjoy putting it together. So anyway, that comes out tomorrow. If you have not signed up for it, go to the website, cowboystatepolitics.com, and the very first thing you'll see is a pop-up, and just put your email address in there and hit submit, and I will put you on the list. Interestingly enough,
I hate that.
Why?
Hitting the button that says submit.
Why? Oh, I know. Yeah. It gives me power over you. I don't know if I've got do I have your email address on the mailing list?
Yeah.
I see. I did it, and you didn't even have to push the button. Aren't you proud? Aren't you happy?
Takes a lot more than that to make me happy.
Very true. All right. Well, I had a bit of a start yesterday. Christine and I are planning a trip to New York in the coming year. Actually, in just a little over a week. She's got a hair thing in New York that we're going to go to, and I'm going to go along with her and visit the Radio City Music Hall, and of course go to the Fox News building and all of that. But we were, getting everything together yesterday, and she says, well, cash is probably not the best thing to carry in the city. And my brain immediately goes to, well, you'll get robbed. Of course you'll get mugged. And she goes, no, David, no. Cash is not king in the city. And I'm like, really? She says, no, you need to have a couple of cards, because that's how everything works in New York.
Yeah, there are a lot of places, even here now, that we don't take cash anymore.
Doesn't that just baffle the crap out of you?
It really does.
I mean, I'm still the person that I've got to have at least some cash in my pocket. Walking around money.
Yeah,
is what
provided
I call it.
The bank has power.
Yeah, provided I can get cash out of the bank. Well, anyway, so a lot of people are turning to digital forms of money. And now Apple is offering a digital ID. You see, it's so convenient, Ken. You can have everything that you need on this little phone, and you don't have to, you don't really have to carry a wallet or anything anymore. It's all digital.
Let's just put it on a little rice-sized chip and insert it into your wrist.
Maybe that would be way more convenient. But Apple is actually offering a digital ID now. Now, this is a piece from The Blaze, and I've got a video that I'm going to play for you here in just a minute. It's kind of long, but it's from the Glenn Beck program, and he's explaining what's happening with this Apple digital ID. But let me just read to you a little bit out of this piece. We'll talk about it, and then we'll play the video. And I quote, Apple has introduced its own digital ID, which is connected to Apple Wallet. Most people have a digital wallet on their phone. I don't know if you have one, Ken. Probably not. But a lot of things with the program, they're all online, and so it's just easier for me. And look, I'm falling into the trap too, to just have, all right, it's in my wallet, pay for this service or that service, and it comes right out of there. But Blaze Media co-founder Glenn Beck is not thrilled to hear about the company's latest advancement, calling it a very, very bad idea. Digital ID is the first thing. Then it includes your medical records. Then it includes all of your health, everything. It'll give you access to the hospitals and not access to the hospitals, as the case may be. It will allow you to buy things or not to buy things. It'll allow you to access online or not access online. It is control of absolutely everything, and that's in the design. And they talk about it openly. After the tyranny displayed during COVID, there are a lot of us conservatives that have become very skeptical of digital forms of ID. And think about this, Ken. Like if everything is in your digital wallet, right? Your digital ID, as it were, your digital bank account, as it were, all of your cards, they're on your phone. And you and I go to the gun store, which we're going to have to do here pretty quick. I need to make some purchases
Too late.
and take them on a boat ride.
I already spent my
I
Christmas
haven't.
money.
I haven't. Anyway, so we go to the gun store, and they tell Ken, "I'm sorry, Mr. Pendergraft, you've exhausted your quota of guns for this year. We're not going to allow you to buy any more guns." Now, it wasn't that long ago that there was a bill in the Wyoming legislature to stop merchants from tracking purchases. Okay, that's minor compared to this. Or perhaps you pull up to the gas pump and you pull out your phone and wave it in front of the gas. I've never done this. I'm just assuming this is how it works. But you wave your phone in front of the gas pump and it says, card declined. I'm sorry, you've exhausted your quota of gasoline. Or perhaps you go to the grocery store.
You're not permitted to travel to that sector.
Or you show up at the airport and your ID is on your phone and they say, "Oh, I'm sorry, your ID won't pull up on your phone. We can't let you board the plane." Are all of those things that far from reality? I think that we're in a place where that could very easily happen. Just some ideologue at the credit card company saying, "Nope, not today, Ken. You're not buying any more guns." Or, "Sorry, David, no more gas for you." We are not that far from it. So go ahead and play the video from, it's called Glenn Digital ID. It's about 6 minutes, but we'll go ahead and watch it.
Why wouldn't you want a digital ID issued by the state?
Why wouldn't I want one?
Why wouldn't you want one?
Gosh, I can't think of any reasons.
Right,
It would make everything so much easier.
Right.
You can always trust the government to have your best interests at heart, unlike these corporations. So I think I would take one immediately. But are there some people that are resisting this? I can't even imagine.
Well, there's some that say that, this is the beginning of an all-seeing, all-knowing state. And the next thing you know, they control everything.
It is weird, too, because is that even speculation? Like, isn't this what, for example, China is already doing?
Oh, yeah, China's already doing it.
They're way down this road.
And Europe, they're trying to get it in, and they talk about it openly, that this is what it is. The next thing, you get the digital ID is the first thing. Then it includes your medical records. It includes all your health, everything. It will give you access to the hospitals or not access to the hospitals. It will allow you to buy things or not buy things. It'll allow you to access online or not access online. It is control of absolutely everything, and that's in the design, and they talk about it openly, okay? We're backdooring it. We're not, because they know Americans are not going to go for that. Really? Did you meet us during COVID? And they've been trying to, remember, that's what a lot of people said the real thing on COVID was really all about, was digital ID. We got to get everybody onto a digital ID. Now, because Americans aren't for it, the good people at Apple are here for you. Presenting the new Apple Digital ID. Now, at the TSA checkpoints in more than 250 airports all across the U.S., you can present your digital ID.
Oh, but it can't happen here.
At TSA checkpoints and get right onto that plane. Imagine it allows you to create and store an ID in an Apple wallet using your U.S. passport. The Apple Digital ID acceptance will begin to roll out at TSA checkpoints for domestic travel in over 250 airports across the USA. Apple notes it's not a replacement for your physical passport, and you can't use it yet for international travel or border crossings. But you can store everything digitally in their wallet. I can already pay for almost everything with that wallet. Now I can use it as an official government ID. Yeah. Who doesn't want that?
I mean, it does sort of sound appealing, doesn't it? I mean, just speaking frankly for a moment, it does.
Very appealing.
When I get on a plane, I'm using that as my key.
Okay. All right. So, very, 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 very scary. You have everything right here on your phone, and it's so convenient. I mean, why? Who wouldn't want to do that, Ken? You only have to carry one little device.
I'd love that. If it was completely isolated.
If it were completely isolated.
That actually kind of made my point. We can't do anything without electricity.
Yes.
We're depending on so many other things that are not faithful.
Mm-hmm.
The whole thing bothers me, but what I wanted to bring up is you and I both love Rush.
Absolutely.
And he loved Apple. He loved technology. I've got to wonder at what point would Rush had to done what Glenn just did and put the brakes on and say, you know what, I think we've pushed a good thing too damn far.
Well, I think you're right. And, before the program, Ken and I were talking about cars. My brother-in-law just recently found, well, he's known where it is for a while, but he found my original International Scout, the one I had in high school. It's a 1958. One of those things that I wish
you just want to get back in there and look under the seat and see.
See if whatever I left under there is still there. Now but the reason for it is you can work on it. Every vehicle that is produced now has so many electronics in it that if that computer goes bad, you're done. Like the vehicle is not going to start. And so unless you're going to ride your bicycle, you're not going anywhere because of electronics. And I think you bring up an interesting point that everything we do here is reliant upon the internet and electricity. If the electricity goes out, okay, that's one thing. We can't even turn anything on. Or B, if we don't have access to the internet, we can't broadcast this program. Now think about if all of your money, your ID, your medical records, everything was dependent upon electricity and the internet.
So you don't have to go very far back in history with the military to understand the idea of the electronic weapons, the EMPs.
Mm-hmm.
You basically just fry everything.
Everything.
And can you imagine the chaos? Let's say you're living in Denver.
Oh, man.
And the power's down. You can't buy food. You can't whatever. Yeah, we are on such a very precarious place and woefully unprepared. One of the reasons that I am so glad that I do no longer live on the Front Range, I was in exile there for a time.
Yeah. I'm glad you finally came to your senses.
Me too. And I'm desperately trying to get my kids out of there. I have my son and his wife are down there. And get out.
Get out now. All right. So one more scary thing. And I don't know that any of you have ever experienced this. What happens when you forget to charge your phone? You go through an airport and it's a mad scramble to find a free electric outlet so you can charge your cell phone. But you're getting ready to go on a trip to, say, New York, and things are busy. You're throwing stuff in the car to get to the airport, and you have to run back in, or at least this is me, have to run back in and grab the phone charger so that you have power all the way through, because invariably Christine and I get caught in an airport somewhere and it's hours. But you just forget to charge your phone. Well, your credit cards, your ID, everything is on this little device, and you don't have access to it.
What if it's charged, but it just fails?
What if it goes bzzz?
That never happens.
Yeah, that never happens at all. Well, I think that we are in a very, 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 very dangerous place, and we may very well be at the tip of, the bell curve, right at the Overton window, where you take one more step through it and you're done. Now, there have been a lot of people online, and now we're getting into real Conspiracyville. Well, I don't know that it's Conspiracyville, but there's been a lot of commentators saying, well, no, this is the beginning of the mark of the beast. Now, I happen to have a minister, a preacher, as a producer. And so let's just tackle that for just a second. Ken, what is the mark of the beast that all these people are talking about?
Wouldn't we all like to know? I would like to say that the person that comes out and says unequivocally this is it is missing what I think is the bigger concept. But we discussed this before. But if you go back to the Tower of Babel, you have this collectivist idea where we basically become our own God and we, mankind, can do anything. We can be gods, which actually that idea goes back to the original lie of Satan.
Right, to the garden.
In the garden.
You can be like God.
The mark of the beast, essentially, as I see it, is the acceptance of the idea of collectivism. Okay, well, what's wrong with unity? What's wrong with people being together?
We hear that all the time, man. We got to have unity, Ken.
Yeah, we've got to be together. And there's an aspect of cooperation that is important. But at its core, God said to mankind, go out and subdue the earth. And mankind instead said, no, let's bunch up and let's work together.
Major cities. Weird.
Yeah. And where's the crime? Where are the issues? People do not function well. They do not function at their best when they are stacked on top of each other, especially when things start to go wrong. But we have ignored God's, well, those of us outside of Wyoming.
Some of us in Wyoming.
We're God's chosen people, right? Because we live where people don't. But there's actually an interesting thread there, and I haven't heard very many people within or without of the church to bring that idea up. But God said, go subdue the earth. And we keep bunching up.
Well, isn't it, throughout the Bible, there are references that nobody knows the time that Jesus is going to come back, right? None of us know, right? One day he's going to show up and, everything's going to be, that's going to be what it is. But, you made a comment before the program that nobody really knows what the mark of the beast actually is. Isn't that correct?
I don't think there's necessarily just one manifestation of that. The mark is that concept of you're being willing to accept this idea of collectivism. And that's the best way that I can describe it.
No, I think that's a great explanation, because what always happens when people like bunch together, like you said, in cities, the Tower of Babel, God said, I don't think we're going to do that. He spread everybody out across the earth. Now, how many times in history has this collectivist idea of socialism worked? Never. But that's essentially what it is. We will all be the same. We'll all be equal. We'll all have equal outcomes. Well, it never works that way, because that's not God's creation.
Together we can do anything. There's no problem. There's no issue too big for government.
Yeah.
When have we heard that? That's the same concept. That's the same lie, because it denies the basic sinful nature of man.
Well, and if you look at how many people object to, conservatism, almost all of them are in the media. But it is this idea that you have to reject everything that is focused on self-reliance, that government must do everything for you. And that's why you see all of these agencies run to your committee, Ken, and say, we need more money so we can provide this service and that service and that service. And pretty soon, government is providing everything.
$205 million just this week to provide bear care, which is basically the government getting into the insurance business and providing catastrophic or funding the base for
Please tell me that it hinges on the state providing some sort of money. We don't know, do we?
There are a lot of things that are wrong there, but and this is the point where I kind of lost it in the committee meeting, was how in the hell is this the job of government?
Exactly.
And anything that government has gotten involved in has made it worse. It's a necessary evil. There are certain things that government should and needs to do, but the more we rely on that collectivist, socialist, communist concept, the worse things will get.
Well, and it is kind of the nature of people, I think, to try to do that. Well, we can do everything together. We can do it so much better together, and we don't really need to focus on, individual reliance, self-reliance to do it yourself.
Okay, now you start talking like Ayn Rand.
Well, I mean, there's a good reason for that.
There are elements of truth and all that, so you get into some pretty heavy philosophical, political concepts. But we need to have that discussion. The problem is that too many people are ill-equipped to have that discussion because they haven't actually educated themselves.
Well, and therein lies the point too, is that so many people are so uneducated when it comes to what the proper role of government is. And that's why, in the 2 weeks worth of committee meetings that you had, the theme in the whole thing, if I had to pick one, would be, what is the proper role of government? Please explain to me how this is the job of government. Why is it the job of government, Josh Durrell, to hand out millions of dollars across the state?
If you're ever going to pare back this behemoth that we have, you have to go back to the basics. You have to go back to what is it that it should be doing.
Right. And invariably, we are so far away from what the proper role of government is that most people don't even know where true north is on that. And that's why that's why you see all these pieces that are written in the media. Oh, these evil conservatives, these evil Freedom Caucus people taking away your services. Bull crap.
Yeah, by the way, I should mention that among us, it's not bear care. If it were up to John Bear, how insurance would be handled, you get a box of Band-Aids and a leather strap to bite on.
You know what, though? Okay, so we're way off topic.
So it's Gordo. Yeah, it's Gordo care.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Now, one government service that I have always been in favor of is the government food store. I think that if you require food stamps, if you're having problems feeding your family, of course we don't want anybody to solve. But I think a good solution to that is the government food store. That you can get the same food that our troops eat, that whatever it is, and I mean you'd have to admit, I think, Ken, there was at least one or two good meals when you were over in the Gulf. Not very many, but at least there was one or two.
In between Chef Boyardee.
Yeah. Okay, you brought it up.
No.
Oh, yes, here we go.
So during Desert Storm, everything was moving very fast and things were getting spread out. And even though we were transportation, we were busy hauling beans and bullets to everybody else. And we ran out of food.
Oh, scary.
We couldn't get any. By food, I mean MREs, which I think was your point.
Yeah, that's kind of the point, yes.
Which you can survive on those. I'm living proof of that. But we ran out of food, and so we put out an urgent distress call, and the Air Force came by, and they dropped us a couple of pallets of Chef Boyardee SpaghettiOs. That's all we had to eat for about 2 weeks. No way to heat them other than set them on the manifold to the trucks.
And then you'd forget about them.
Yeah, you forget, and they blow up and you stink. So, it's very basic, and I think that's part of the thing. That's one of the reasons while we were over there, for example, that everybody sent care packages with cookies and other sweet things, because the Army provides you the basic, what you need to survive. And in that respect, I appreciate what you're saying. Mm-hmm. If you're going to rely upon the government to feed you, this is what you're going to get. You're not going to get all this crap. And look at the resistance that type of bill has.
Oh, I know
you can't buy soda pop with your... Oh!
Well, and so when I was young, my uncle, who's since passed away, he was in the National Guard. And they'd go to their guard weekends, and sometimes he'd bring home a block of cheese. I don't know if that was legal or if he was supposed to do that or not, but he'd come with these giant blocks of cheddar cheese. And I remember very distinctly that it actually wasn't that bad. But think about it. If you need food and you need government assistance, you can go to the government food store. You can get everything you need there to survive. It's not great. I mean, it's not the things that you would want, but at least you can go get food. But what that would do is it would force people to say, wow, I don't want to survive on MREs and government cheese, though there would be some that would say this is just fine for me. What it would do is most people would say, yeah, I can't handle this anymore. I'm going to go find a way to get my own food. I might be in favor of that.
You could always tell what units had just come back from the field by going into a bathroom stall, and you see claw marks on the side, because after a few weeks of eating MREs and probably not drinking enough water to go through that, you can imagine the result.
Yeah. So anyway, we got way off topic on that one. But here is another one. And if you want to know the state of things, the New York Times has it for you. According to the New York Times, Trump's migration policy threatens the nation's shrubbery. Go ahead and play it.
We shall say Nick again to you if you do not appease us.
Well, what is it you want?
We want a shrubbery.
What? Please, no more.
It never gets old.
It never gets old, man.
They're just so stupid.
Or else you will never pass through this word
alive. Bring me a shrubbery. According to the New York Times, President Trump's deportation of illegal migrants will damage the nation's decorative shrubs by forcing up Americans' wages. And this is what I'm talking about with what is the proper role of government here. Quote, construction wages have been rising, even as home building has been sluggish, a potential indication that deportations in the immigrant-heavy industry are bidding up salaries, the newspaper warned its wealthy pro-migrant, pro-shrubbery readers on December 28th, adding, the same is true in landscaping. Immigrant crews working outside were an easy deportation target over the summer. Come spring, said Kim Hartman, an executive at the Chicago area landscaping firm, the labor force could be 10 to 20% smaller. It's going to be much more competitive to find that individual who's been a foreman or a supervisor and has years of experience in shrubberies. But there are limits to how much customers will pay for decorative shrubs, as they may opt to go without. The article grudgingly admits that wages in automation rose in the 1930s, following Congress's decision to sharply curb migration in 1924. But it did not describe how the nation's shrubbery survived that dip in workforce, the resulting creation of a prosperous suburbia. Although the efforts of the 1924 immigration restrictions are difficult to untangle from other developments, wars, technological advances, and the baby boom, wages rose for U.S.-born workers in places affected by the immigrant restrictions. American-born workers from small towns migrated to urban areas and alleviated shortages. Farms turned to automation to replace the missing labor. The newspapers worry about the threat to the nation's shrubbery in Trump's low migration economy, however, is largely hidden under heart-rendering stories about migrants. So, are you worried about the shrubbery, Ken?
You keep using the word. I do not think it means what you think it means.
I do not think it means that either. Shrubberies. Are you worried about your bushes?
You can't even say it straight anymore.
I can't. No.
I am, because I've heard they could be used in cosmetics, but that's a story for another day.
Oh, yeah, cosmetics.
Let's not go there right now.
You know, that's a field that, I have become more familiar with. My wife owns a salon, so.
I went through those years, too, with my wicked stepmother.
Yeah, well, hey, whatever keeps me in the lifestyle I've become so accustomed to, I'm all in favor of. Let's go ahead and take a break, and when we come back, we'll finish up the program. Maybe. There we go. Make sure that you subscribe and follow the Cowboy State Politics podcast. You can do that from the website, cowboystatepolitics.com, or anywhere that you get your podcasts. That way, you'll make sure that you won't miss a single episode of Cowboy State Politics. Hunting season. Right about now, you're off with all of your pals, stalking the big gigantic elk or buck mule deer that you've been thinking about all summer long. And your lovely wife is at home, probably enjoying her time without you. But soon, my friend, all of that is going to come to a screeching halt. And I want you to think about just one little thing. She's able to park her car inside the garage because all of your hunting crap is with you right now. Now, if you'd like the marital bliss to continue, I suggest you make a call to Marcos and Jesse at Morton Buildings. Their phone number is 307-674-2532. They can build you a garage or a barn or any other type of metal structure for you to store all of your toys in so that your wife can continue parking inside the garage. And you can avoid sleeping on the couch for the next month or two. Call Morton Buildings. Their phone number is 307-674-2532. Get them to build you a metal building before it's too late. Welcome back to the program, Cowboy State Politics Live on this New Year's Eve. Thank you for watching. Thank you for spending your morning with us. I really appreciate it. You know, one thing I try really hard to do is to just bring you more value. I mean, your time is valuable, and I really do appreciate you spending it with me and with us. And so I try really hard to bring you the best value for your time. And in doing so, coming on Friday, we're going to have a what I think is a big announcement. It's taken me a long time to put together. And so Friday, officially, we're going to have that big announcement. Make sure you don't miss the program. I think it's going to be fantastic. And it's, I've often thought that if you want to make big changes, sometimes you got to take big swings. And so, it's not true in everything. In baseball, sometimes it's the bunt that gets you the run. But there are occasions where you got to swing for the fences. And we all know that there are that there are those baseball players that the only way you're going to win the game is if they knock it out of the park. I'm not saying this is a knock it out of the park moment, but I think it's pretty cool. And I think it's pretty important. And so on Friday, I'm going to tell you about our latest attempt to bring more value to you. So don't miss Friday's program. I think you're really going to like what we have for you. And I've kind of hinted around about it, but now we're at a place where we can finally announce that. So that's going to happen Friday on the program. You excited, Ken?
No, I'll be in Cheyenne.
Well, actually, it's going to help you too. Because, and I'll give you a little hint here. We started out today's program with an article from the Cowboy that is not news. Okay, that's opinion.
That's why we read it, because it was not news.
It's not news. And that is what you get from pretty much the entirety of the Wyoming press. If you, on any given day, if you pull up the Pravda on the Platte, the Casper Star Tribune, you may not find an article about Wyoming. And if you do, it's not news in the typical sense of the word. And what I mean by that is, here's the facts. Here's what's going on.
Who, what, where, when, why.
There you go. Answer those 5 questions, and that's all it is. And that's what journalism ought to be.
You're supposed to answer those first 5 questions in the first paragraph or 2.
Yes, exactly right.
Yes.
But that's not what you get. You get pieces that are nothing but opinion, and they're all written from one point of view, and you're left to think that that's news. So we're gonna take a shot at changing that, and that's what I'm gonna bring you on Friday. I'm pretty excited about it. Like I say, it's taken me a long time to put together, and I'm very thankful for the folks that are in this with me. And it's names that you've already heard of, probably a lot, but it's super exciting, and I think you're really going to like it. So. One more culprit in the Wyoming media, and this is a guy that I hesitate to even bring him up. They call it platforming, but in this case, I think that we have to so-called, as it were, platform Tom Lubnow. Former one of the founders of the Frontier Republicans. There's a name we haven't heard for a while.
I was having a nice day until just now.
I know. But hey, this is Cowboy State politics, and a lot of what I do is I'm kind of like a little black rain cloud sometimes. But this one we can make fun of, and it's a good way to end the program. From the Cow Pie. Now, this one actually appears on their opinion section. How to Ruin Wyoming on Purpose. A practical guide for the ambitiously foolish. Of course, there's no recognition that Tom Lubnow is the foolish one. And by the way, before I even start this, if all of these things, if everything that Tom Lubnow writes about is so important, why didn't he do anything about it when he was Speaker of the House? Why is it that all of these problems exist that Tom Lubnow writes about, but he didn't fix a darn one of them when he was in office?
There's a similar argument, and I don't want to get us off track. There's a similar argument coming from Mike Inn. He was talking about the Freedom Caucus wants to come in and change Wyoming. No. We want to change the legislature.
Yes. And and that's a common argument, and you'll hear this in the piece too. That these evil conservatives are trying to change Wyoming. They think
they are Wyoming.
Yes, they do.
And Wyoming is rising up and saying, "No, you're not."
Yes. If you go to any small town, it doesn't really matter which one it is, KC or Bill or Aladdin or
not Buffalo. That's a different place.
Well, Hazard County is different, as some people have found out. But if you want to get reelected there, all you got to do is get a DUI. You'll get 1,000 more votes than you did the last election. But pretty much any small town does not resemble the Wyoming that the legislature tries to create, where government is in charge of everything, where government provides everything. Most small towns, it's individual people that live there, neighbors helping neighbors. I mean, that right there is Wyoming. It's not Cheyenne.
Where government is not big enough. We beat that horse to death.
Yeah. So here's what Tom Lubnow says. Quote, if someone is genuinely intent on ruining the great state of Wyoming, they don't need to resort to earthquakes, plagues, or use big biblical catastrophes. With determination and a good dose of backward thinking, the task can be accomplished with far simpler tools, of which I am sure Tom Lubnow is all too familiar. History shows us that many kingdoms have fallen not by the sword, but by the arrogance of their own legislatures. Is that not the pot calling the kettle black? Here's a 10-step plan to effectively dismantle our beloved state. The first step in wrecking the state is to starve it. Now, think about this one, Ken. Slash the tax base, preferably until it disappears entirely. If a person can't work if you take away their boots, and the government can't function if you strip it of the very revenue that keeps the lights on.
A government can't function. Yes, we're trying to starve the government because there's too damn much of it.
Yes. Now, the reality is, and we talked about this in the program, one of the ways that you can collapse an economy is by spending too much. That you spend so much that you have to print money. Now, states can't print money, of course, but they can certainly spend a whole great deal of it.
They can come up with other ways to make money.
Yes.
Digital currencies,
those sorts of things. But typically the way that you ruin a state or a country is you spend yourself into oblivion. I mean, that is the impetus behind all of the money printing, the $36 trillion debt that we have now in Wyoming. We can't carry a debt, and we don't have to, because we've got $30 billion sitting in the bank. Not according to Kurt Meyer, of course. He says it's divvied up in different funds, and it's not actually liquid. That's a bunch of bull crap. All it takes is a bill, but it's not. Destroying a government doesn't mean that you starve it of money. It means they spend too much. So yes, they need to be starved. Now he says, second, deplete every bit of savings. If a rainy day fund exists and Wyoming has refined the art of saving for storms, spend it all while the sun is shining and the grass is green. Remember, savings are for those who plan for the future, and planning is the enemy of state destruction. So are we draining our rainy day fund?
No. In fact, we're shoring it up to some degree. Maybe not as much as some would like to do. Kurt Meyer, for example, wants to add another $100 million a year to yet another savings scheme.
Well, and herein lies another problem with Wyoming liberals, that, including Tom Lubnow, that we have to have a gigantic rainy day fund. Well, the question is, how much is too much? I mean, how much is enough? Is 20 billion enough? Is 30 billion enough? Even if we were to grant everything in the governor's budget request, everything, just not pare it down, not take an axe to it, not do anything, just grant it, pass the bill at $11.5 billion. The amount of money that we have in the bank right now would run that budget for 3 bienniums, 6 years, 3 bienniums. So that's how much money we have in the bank. A lot of counties and towns have enough money in savings to run their little cities for several years. Sheridan is one of those.
Can you show me in our state constitution, or anywhere else for that matter, where it is the role of government to hoard billions of taxpayer dollars?
No, it's not in there.
With the money goes the power, and that's the inherent problem. Yes, we need a rainy day fund. Yes, we need to have some money set aside so that we can even things out and weather the storms. Absolutely. When is enough enough?
Calvin Coolidge said that taxing more than is absolutely necessary to cover the necessary functions of government, he called it legalized larceny.
The Wyoming State Constitution starts out that way.
Yes, it does. Now, why is it legalized larceny? Because you're taking money from people to ostensibly run the functions of government. This is what we need to run your government for this year, or in Wyoming's case, 2 years. It is wrong to take more than you need because those taxes don't come voluntarily. All taxation is force. You have to force people to pay their taxes. And in the case of Wyoming, if you don't pay your property taxes, they take your house. I mean, it's no more complicated than that.
Yeah, and what I'm referring to in the Constitution is inherent absolute power exists nowhere except in the people.
Yes.
Unless the government gets too big and takes their houses.
Yes, exactly right. But it is wrong to take more money than you need. And we have been doing that for a very long time. The entire time I've been watching the legislature, every single session, every single one of them, there has been a budget amendment to take hundreds of millions of your dollars and put it in the bank. Oh, look at us. We're saving for a rainy day fund. Well, if you've got $100 million left over, it means you tax too much. It means you have an already bloated government, and then you take $100 million on top of it. That's wrong. It's legalized larceny.
I think I've mentioned this. I brought that up and put it back on Ogden Driscoll and Mike Giroux. And they simultaneously looked at me and said together, it's not their money.
That is the attitude.
That is the attitude up there, is because that money came from oil and gas revenues, which, by the way, those revenues are paid by all taxpayers.
Yes. Companies don't pay taxes.
Yeah. Hey, we keep going in circles. But it's really frustrating because they have this idea that it's their money to play with. It's their money to do whatever they want to do with, to build monuments to themselves. Think the Tower of Babel.
Think Steve Harshman and the Steve Harshman Memorial Walkway.
Yeah, just take a look at that football stadium.
Yeah.
And see.
Yeah, exactly right. So that's a $2 million walkway. Okay, now if we have cash left over, and I realize that I'm mixing county expenditures with state expenditures, but it's all the same thing, that you're taxing too much money. If you've got $3 million left over to build an ugly flower garden in the middle of Sheridan, you have $3 million too much.
While overlooking that is a county attorney who can't afford to pay anybody to do the job that they have to do.
We
have to get into that sometime too, but
we don't have near enough time to do it. But.
Yeah, it's just obscene. And frankly, she's upset too. She looks over at that and thinks, 1/3 of that money, and it would have set my office up, and we could do our job properly.
Now think about this. So what Ken is talking about is the county prosecutor's office. Her name is Diana Bennett. She and I don't exactly see eye to eye, but we do on this. Now, she doesn't have enough money in her budget to pay prosecutors. Think about that. One of the main functions of government is to prosecute criminals, to keep order in the county. And she doesn't have enough money in her budget to pay a prosecutor. Okay, now she's a prosecutor. That's true.
So they say the problem is the state doesn't contribute enough.
Okay, so then why were we able to build a $3 million flower pot? If you don't have enough money to pay...
You use that excuse. Well, the state's not contributing, therefore we don't have to. Oh, look at this shiny thing over here we could do.
Yes. Okay, so we can't even pay... We can pay for the essential functions of government, but we're not. Now, this is just one local example, but I think that it is stereotypic of the entire state, that you're not covering the essential functions of government. You're paying for all this other crap that isn't your job, that isn't in the state constitution, that isn't in statute until one of these liberal legislators gets it pushed through in a bill. But the point is that how much money is enough? Tell me, what's the number? When we had Mike Yen and Carly Provenza sitting here in the studio, and they said, we don't fund education enough, I point blank asked them, what's the number? What is the number? How much do we need to spend per student? And they wouldn't answer the question.
We spend more than any other state, virtually.
Right. Okay, so it's not spending that's the problem. In fact, it's overspending that's the problem. Well, third, Lubnow points out, drive the children out of the state, is what he said. Exporting young people is the most effective way to destroy a state. Ensure schools are underfunded, activities are unsupported, and career prospects are dismal. Before long, they'll flee to places where lights shine late at night and communities welcome new employees trying to support a family. There's a whole bunch of problems with this one. Well, there's a whole bunch of problems with the entire piece, but in this particular section, it is a myth. And I mean, there's a lot of energy and words that have been typed out to try to disprove this. But you hear liberals, Josh Durrell, members of the Democrat Party, members of the Wyoming caucus, the liberal Republicans, all of the young people leave our state, and it's going to destroy the state of Wyoming. I challenge you to do this very thing. Go to the library and pull up newspapers from 15 years ago and find out what the population of your town was 15 years ago, and then compare it to the population it is now. I'll be willing to bet that it hasn't gone down. And if it has, it's a nominal amount. It's, 100 here, 200 there. The truth is that Wyoming's population has remained pretty well stagnant for the last 20 years. Now, why is that? Now, I guess you could make the argument, well, it's old people that are moving here, that they're the ones that are filling the gap. All the young people are leaving. Well, why is it? I mean, that can't be the entire reason. Why is it that Wyoming's population has remained around 500,000 for decades? If all of these people are leaving the state, if all of these young people are seeking their fortunes elsewhere, why has our population not changed? Oh, it's because it really hasn't. So this is clearly not the problem. The truth is, most people, when they're young, leave this state, and then they find out that was a really, really stupid decision, and then they spend years trying to figure out how to get their butt back here. That's what happened to me. I moved to the East Coast for 12 years, and, I knew, in the first month that I had made a very, very poor decision. But anyway, it took me years to figure out how to get back here. And so here I am, and, God willing, I'll never leave. Don't take that too literally, please. But
you can do it. If you set your mind to it, you can do it.
Yep.
And I, frankly, maybe this is where I separate myself from some of the other crowds, I don't want anybody here that doesn't want to be here.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to go seek your fortune in the world, go.
Well, I think the point is that most people come back, Ken.
Yeah.
I mean,
I did the same.
Yes, and I think that's true. And Ken got laughed at in the committee meeting when he challenged Josh Durrell, and he said, "You know what? I've got a study right here that says the opposite of what you're claiming." And, you could audibly hear some chuckles in the crowd, but Ken was absolutely right.
Yeah, you tout a lie long enough, it becomes perceived as the truth.
Yes.
It never becomes the truth.
Well, a lie travels fast, so fast that the truth never gets its pants on to defend itself. Let's see here. The fifth step, similar to the fourth, drive away healthcare providers. Discourage doctors, insult nurses, and underpay everyone with a stethoscope. Cut healthcare services in favor of tax reduction. Folks
Okay,
will leave.
stop for a second.
I was wondering.
This has been a problem in Wyoming forever, that we underpay public health nurses, for example.
Okay.
I hear from virtually every agency we can't get good help because we can't pay enough. I can show you graphically that until the last couple of years, when actually the Freedom Caucus began to get popular, that there weren't raises. Tom Lubnow, you are guilty of this very thing. You are the reason things are screwed up. And now you want to come back and tell us how to fix stuff? Kiss mine.
Exactly the response that you should have to this guy. Let's see here. Manipulate voting laws. Make it harder to vote than for a far-sighted lawyer threading a needle. Ensure that only a select few can participate in elections. Okay, another bullcrap lie that we get from the Wyoming left all the time. And if you read the entirety of this piece, none of these things are really happening. I mean, it is just Tom Lubnow's leftist perspective and the perspective of, just about everybody on the Wyoming left, that they have to repeat these lies long enough so that you believe them. And I lay it squarely at the feet of the Wyoming media. And, if they actually did their job and, wrote articles honestly. I was typing an email last night to the head of the communications department at UW. And, I flat said, I think you and I would agree that it's pretty easy to find people to write opinion. Everybody's got an opinion, but it is really hard to find people that will write facts. And it's because I don't think that a lot of people are too interested in showing you what the facts are. But I can tell you for a fact, my friends, that as long as I've been observing the legislature, there are so many stories that if you actually knew what was going on, and if I actually had the time to do enough programs on them, it would completely change your perspective of how you view what happens in Cheyenne, how you view those people that show up on your doorstep and ask for your vote. There are so many stories that are unwritten, that are that people aren't talking about, and it's simply because the conservative media or people that are actually interested in writing news are so few that we just don't have. There's not enough time in the day to write enough pieces to tell you what happens down there.
Look at that kid that exposed what's going on in Minnesota with the Somalis. All it takes is one. I'm sitting on 2 or 3 stories right now.
One of them I am dying
I don't
to
have
research.
time to pursue them. I have a job to do.
Well, that's why you have pals in the media.
Yeah, one of these days, I'm not going to run again. I am running.
One of these days.
Yeah, I am running this next one, and I just don't know what for yet.
Oh,
we'll get
weird.
there sometime. But there is so much that could and should be done, that needs to be done. If you're sitting there listening to this and you're frustrated about things, you need to get a hold of us.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much to do.
Well, and coming on Friday, I'm going to tell you about a way that perhaps we can fix all of this, or at least start chipping away at it. But, I mean, the problem is so big, Ken, that, I mean, we could spend our entire time just writing stories and do nothing else, and we would still not cover a quarter of them.
But the stories have to not fall. There's that scene again. That's kind of a ridiculous camera angle.
Yeah, that's strange. I like it. Meet more of me.
Maybe that's my problem with it. There's a lot to be done, and if somebody goes out and exposes an issue, then there are things that need to be done after that. Too many times somebody exposes something, and goes, "Oh, that's horrible!" Boo, and throw something out there, and then nothing ever changes.
Right.
we've got to pull our bootstraps up, do the hard work.
Yes, you are exactly right. Now, we've got, I don't know, about 6 minutes left in the program, and here's where I want to end it. It's New Year's Eve, and I am not one of these people that makes New Year's resolutions. There's lots of things that we all need to change in our life, but I think, it's doing away with the whole idea of a New Year's resolution, because let's be honest, how many people actually follow that through the entire year? It's not very many. I think that we should have goals for the next year, and perhaps you could say that a New Year's resolution is a goal. But I think that we should set goals that are attainable, that you can actually do, that require action, right? So, again, you may say, well, my resolution is to eat less chocolate. It's true that, perhaps that requires an action. But what I'm challenging you to do is to actually act to further a specific purpose. Let me tell you what mine is going to be. My goal for the next year is to further chip away at what the Wyoming media has become, to give you, to create a platform to where we can change a lot of these things, or that at the very least that we can start to chip away at it. That's my goal, to make this program as big as it possibly can. Now, it's my business, and so yeah, of course, I want to expand it and get the distribution up on it. But I also want to do provide a way that we can make a difference. So here's where I'm going with that. After Charlie Kirk was assassinated, I saw pictures everywhere that said, "I am Charlie Kirk." Okay, all right, good. I'm glad that a lot of people said, yep, we're going to do that. But let me ask you, what did he do? He said, "Here I am, Lord, pick me." And then he went out and did it. Now, if you're one of those people that said, "I am Charlie Kirk," okay, great. Now follow through. Do something with it. It is not just a slogan. It is not enough to, just complain about something online. Get off your dead butt and go do something. Now, maybe you can run for office. There's a lot of offices that people aren't running for this year. Go run for it. We need good people to make a difference and shine. Now, maybe you're not the person that wants to run for office, and that terrifies the crap out of you. Okay, find somebody that will run for office and work for them. Go knock on doors. Go help them distribute flyers. Go fold mailers. That takes a long time if you've ever done that. But maybe you're the person that doesn't want to knock on doors, but you can watch kids. All right, so go watch the kids for somebody who can go knock on doors. Or maybe you hate children. Maybe you just don't like kiddos and you're not good with them. All right, but you make a heck of a cherry pie. Fine, go make a cherry pie, take it to the next fundraiser. Or maybe you don't like to do any of those things, but you can, your right hand or your left hand does pretty good with a pen and a pad. All right, write a check for somebody that can go do all of these things. My point is that everybody can do something. The missing ingredient in all of that is to get off your dead butt and go do it. Go do it. Whatever it is that you think that you can accomplish, you can. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you can. That's my challenge for you this year. Go do something. Put your declaration that I am Charlie Kirk, put that to work. Go do something with it.
One person can make a big difference.
Oh, boy.
You look 6 years ago, and I'm basically kind of like you were, sitting there reading the newspaper, listening to the radio, whatever, thinking things are screwed up.
Getting pissed off.
And I could have just stayed there and said things are screwed up. A few short years later, I'm sitting at a dais with all the movers and shakers of Wyoming coming and asking me for money.
Sure.
One person makes a difference.
Big time. Now think about this program, right? 6 years ago. Like Ken said, I was sitting around my apartment complaining, and I decided I needed to do something. And so I started this program, and I can't tell you how many candidates I've interviewed. I can't tell you how many people, well, I can tell you how many people I've reached on the podcast. It's closing in on 400,000 downloads. There's way over 500,000 views of this program just this year. One person can make a heck of a lot of difference. So my challenge for you in the next year is to go do something. Whatever it is that you think that you want to do, whether you want to get in politics or you want to start a business or you want to hire people, go do it. The only thing stopping you is your own self-deception that somehow you can't do it. So my friends, go do it. In the next year, make a difference because you can. Thank you for watching the program this year. I really appreciate it. And we'll be back tomorrow with New Year's Day.
See you next year.
See you next year. For now, from the base of the Bighorns. Happy New Year's, my friends. See you tomorrow.